Welcome to another episode of People and Management, and I'm delighted and actually a little bit lucky to have with me on the call a gentleman by the name of Mike Storkey. Now, Mike is the international president for Toastmasters, and so I want to give you a little bit of Mike's background, and then we'll drill Mike for all his wisdom. How does that sound? Welcome to the call for starters, Mike.
Thank you, Sally.
All right, so who is Mike Storkey? He is a business trainer and coach at Storkey's Team, which is a business that he co-founded in 2005. And Mike helps small business and local government and other organisations to do strategic business planning, to do change management, time management. He gets right in there and helps them build their leadership. As well as this business, Mike also is a licensed real estate agent, and he is heavily involved with a lot of service organisations. He was a forming founder president for a local chamber of commerce in northern Queensland, the Whitsundays. He's also been recognised with a Paul Harris Fellow for his work with the Rotary Club in Airlie Beach. So when we talk about Mike Storkey, we also talk about service. So I think it's just an amazing background. And congratulations on being Toastmasters International President.
Thank you, Sally. It's an honour.
Yeah, I feel privileged to have you, particularly in my head and in my imagination. You are an incredibly busy man already, but even more so as part of your presidency.
Yeah, and I like to be busy. I'm a person who gets bored very quickly, so I like to be occupied. And for me, a good day is a busy day.
Oh, fantastic. So what got you into Toastmasters? Because you've been with Toastmasters for more than 26 years.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Leslie and I lived in the Whitsundays. And the Whitsundays is a fabulous place during the daytime. You can go, well, apart from when cyclones are there, you can go swimming, sailing, snorkeling, beautiful. But in the evening when the sun goes down, there's very little to do other than go to bars and nightclubs. And Leslie and I, with 5 kids, felt that really wasn't our scene. And we heard that a Toastmasters club was forming, so we went along to see what happened. We didn't actually join then. We waited another 2 years. But you can honestly say we went for social activity and interaction with people rather than anything else.
Fantastic. And I get asked the same thing about why I joined, and I say fun, and people look at me like I'm a little bit weird. So, but that's why I joined. So, yeah. And I think one of the things that I really want to dig into, because you help businesses in your business life, you help businesses to build their capability, their leadership, and be strategic. And now in your presidency, what are those leadership lessons that you've learnt from being in the role of international president so far?
Well, I think the greatest thing I've learnt is to listen. I think far too many of our leaders have their own agendas and ambitions, which is fine. But you need to listen to your team, you need to listen to your customers, you need to listen to the members of your association, because your vision has got to include their visions. So you need to hear what they're saying. And I think too often we try to think how someone is going to end the conversation when we're listening to them, and we answer what we think they were going to say rather than what they actually said.
Yeah, and that's the tape that's already playing in their head, isn't it, to some degree?
That's right.
Yeah. So I guess, and I want to just tap into that a little bit deeper. I'd love to know your insight. What can people do to actually stop the tape and actually, like our leaders, to actually stop and be present and listen?
Well, I think if you look in people's eyes when you talk to them and stop, just suspend thinking what you think they're going to say and really listen, because usually what they have to say, the important words, are in the last 6 words they say. And it really takes a conscious effort to start with. But even if there's a little pause when they've finished before you start speaking, there's an old saying in sales that whoever talks first after the salesman has given his pitch will end up buying the product. So the salesman should never be the first person to speak.
Right.
It should always be the client.
Oh, that's gold. Thank you for that. I think that's excellent. And there's a concept at the moment that's getting a lot of popularity called self-leadership. I think it's probably an old concept with new language around it. How do you see this concept of self-leadership showing up?
Well, I think to be an effective leader, you need to know yourself. And I think if you can't lead yourself, it's going to be very difficult to lead others. So you have to temper your enthusiasm with a little bit of caution. You've got to be prepared to listen to others. So I think self-leadership is probably putting the emphasis where it should be before we try to lead others. Let's make sure we can lead ourselves and that we are aware of our strengths, but also aware of our weaknesses, and build our teams accordingly so that we have people with strengths we don't have to help us achieve the goals.
And I think that's a challenge for some people, because at some level there's a little bit of threatening that can go on, that if you've got something, a skill or ability that I don't have, how do I get over myself so that you can actually shine in the skill that I don't have?
Well, I think the biggest thing that lacks in leadership today is delegation. So many people feel they have to do it all themselves and nobody can do it as well as I can do it. But you only have so many hours in the day. There's only so much time you have. If you have an effective team who you trust and who have skills you can rely upon, then delegate to them, because delegation not only means you'll achieve more, but you're giving others an opportunity to grow their leadership skills and become effective leaders. If you do it all yourself, knowledge is only worth something when you share it. If you keep it all to yourself, it means nothing. But if you can pass it on to others and they can develop their potential, then how much more effective would your team be than if it's just a one-man band?
Oh, my ears are just loving everything you just said. I'm a big advocate for delegation. So yes, I totally agree. And I can imagine that in your role currently as Toastmasters International President, delegation plays a big part.
Well, as you know, our organisation is based on volunteers. All our leaders are volunteers. And we wouldn't be in over 136 countries with over 1,600 clubs if it wasn't for volunteers. And each one of those leaders does or performs because they have delegated tasks. And if we didn't delegate them, we only have a staff of 160 odd people worldwide. You just couldn't run an organisation our size if you didn't delegate. And we are where leaders are made, and part of making leaders is delegating responsibility or authority to do jobs so that they can learn by doing. Yeah.
And I think then that begs the question, then you've gone from, you're an incredibly successful businessman who has focused on local government, small business, and now you're stepping into an international role. What's been an unexpected challenge for you in that, taking on the other role, the international role?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is you have to have a global perspective when you go into something that's international. When you're running your own business, it's your own business, and your customers, it's the same in an organisation, or when you're in a club, it's safe, four walls, you know the people in the club. But the challenge is to step outside your comfort zone. And that's really, for me, moving out of thinking North Queensland or what have you, and starting to think on a global perspective with other cultures, other customs. That was a huge learning curve for me. But I'm so thankful that I did it.
And I'm imagining that challenge to push the thinking more globally has an impact on your ability to also strategically think, and how that's come back and will help your clients in your own business.
Oh, exactly. I mean, if you can see the big picture of whatever sphere of influence you're in, it allows you to make decisions that are far more rational, effective, and take into consideration a lot more items or things that you didn't think of before. And sometimes it's like a little aha moment when you suddenly think, why isn't this working? And then you think, oh, I'm only looking at it from my perspective, not from their perspective. And suddenly you find that maybe something you held very strongly to be true, it might be where you live, but it isn't in India or in England or wherever.
God, that's gold. That's really fascinating. And I think that that's a real key leadership learning piece, is that, because let's face it, a lot of leaders that we meet, particularly in a business context, they get pulled down into the weeds of everything day to day. Whereas this sounds like just such an opportunity to help you stay higher and strategic. Do you get caught up? Do you get pulled down into the weeds of operational things for Toastmasters?
I think occasionally. I think whilst I'm all for being a strategic thinker and leaving the operational to your managers, etc., you still have to be conscious of operational, because if you don't know what's happening at the coalface in your business or in your organisation, it's very hard to make realistic strategic plans if you're ignoring the operational challenges. The thing is to realise when to let go and let the lower echelons deal with that, and when to just be aware of their challenges but let them solve that, but you keep looking at the goals overall and the broader picture.
And that comes full circle back to your point about listening. You need to listen, and I don't think it necessarily means that you're not doing or you necessarily have to fix everything. I think there's a real balancing act, and it comes back to listening and trust and delegation.
Yeah, and trust is a very important part. You need to trust your team. So you need to build a team in whom you have trust. You can develop the trust. And once again, to develop trust, we were talking about delegation earlier. If you delegate to a team member and you're not quite sure if they're going to be up to it and they do a brilliant job, they have built trust with you, built on doing something. And that is so important. If you know your team and you can trust them, then it's one of the nicest feelings you can have in business. And
there's a statement that was said to me many years ago doing a leadership program, was you cannot hate the person whose story you know. And what that interpretation of that for me was, the more I get to know the people I work with or hang out with or need to lead or manage, and not all the warts and all stories, but you get to know them, the trust will be there, because I'll have a better relationship to ask and to clarify and to take hands off and let them do. And I think that it's quite interesting in Toastmasters, the first speech that we ask people to do when they're joined is their icebreaker. So I think it's a beautiful blend. It's a beautiful way to build the trust, get to know the team, and then it can build from there.
I think one of the most important things in business and in society today is communication. And too many times you hear people say, the only time I ever hear from my boss is when I've done something wrong.
Yes.
I'm a great believer that when I was an area director and had to ring the presidents of the clubs in my area for which I was responsible, I'd ring them every week, once a week, not to find out what was happening in the club, but just to find out, how are you going, John? How's the family? Just to build up that rapport. So when there was a problem, they felt easy in talking to me. And I think in business today, we don't do that enough. We don't talk to people and congratulate them, give them praise and ask how they're going enough. So you build up that rapport, so when there is a challenge, a problem, you can have a meaningful one-on-one with trust.
So here's quite an operational question for you then. As that area director, number one, how many presidents were there, and realistically, how long did all those calls take you?
Well, there were 6 to 7 in the area that I was in charge of, spread over an area of some 500 kilometres. So many of the clubs were different to others. Some were rural and some were based in a urban area. The average time for the call would be no more than 5 to 10 minutes. But if there was something they wanted to talk about, then it could take, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But average 5 to 10. So it was really just an hour a week.
Yeah.
At a time that suited them, and that's important. Don't you stipulate the time. Ask them when it's convenient, because each of them has family commitments that won't be the same as yours.
That's right. And the reason why I asked that is because, the problem or the scenario is much bigger in our heads than what it really is. And I think quite often leaders and managers need to right-size a situation or right-size a problem or right-size this kind of task. So,
Exactly.
thank you for that. I think that's really, really important to actually get a handle on that it's not actually such a big deal. But the outcome is gold. The outcome's absolutely gold. Yeah. So I've asked you about an unexpected challenge, and so that was about really being really quite global and looking at situations from more than your own perspective. What's been an unexpected delight of being the international president?
I don't know if it was unexpected, to be honest with you, but as you probably I'm passionate about the members of our organisation, and the opportunity to actually visit them on their home territory and in the conditions in which they're attending clubs and things. It's an honour and a privilege that it just blows me away. I'm still a great believer that the greatest thing in our organisation is the member. And to actually be able to go to club meetings in various parts of the States or Sri Lanka or India or whatever is such a privilege.
I get goosebumps when you just said that. I can only, I've been to a few countries where I've seen a few different clubs, but I've not been to the sheer diverse amount of clubs you've probably visited. So, yeah, an amazing experience. What would you say to someone who is looking to take on a bigger role? I mean, you've got the top role at the moment in Toastmasters International. I know you don't look at it like that, but organisational structure-wise you are. When people look to a role like yours, or they look to a really senior role and they kind of have their sparkle in the eye, what's your advice for them?
Never let an opportunity pass you by, because it may never come again. Even if you have some misgivings or doubts that your capabilities are sufficient to do the job, trust in your own ability, study by all means, but take it on. Because I would hate to think that in years to come you'd be sitting there in the privacy of your own home one night and thinking, what if I had done that? Or what if? You should never die wondering. You need to go out there and take every opportunity because, as I said before, they might not come your way again. And, there's some amazing things that can happen when you make a decision and you're not 100% sure it's the right one. If you don't make a decision, you can't change anything. But if you make the wrong decision, you can change it. So don't vacillate. Grab it with both hands and run with it.
Oh, I love that. And one of the things I think I would like to add to that is, and I'd love your comment on this, when we look at a role, a higher level role or an opportunity that comes our way, I think some of the tape that plays in our head is, well, I don't know how to do that. And so, well, to me and to my way of thinking is, well, of course you don't, because if you've not done it before. Stop expecting to know how to do it. This is real life on-the-job training, and you're not alone.
And that's where I think Toastmasters shine. They don't expect you to know how to do the job. They look at you and say, we believe you have the potential to do the job. Take the challenge and we will teach you on the job. And nothing teaches anyone better than doing the job. You can swap books, you can go to university, you can do a whole lot of things. There is no substitute for experiencing and doing the actual job.
Yes, I totally agree. It's we're a work in progress, and that's why we always step up and have a go. So I think that's fantastic. Exactly. Yeah. So I think I have one last question for you, if I may, and that's around being productive and keeping productivity on track for you. So given it's a global role, what do you do to keep or ensure that you are productive in achieving your vision as you set yourself forward into this presidency and beyond?
Well, I usually try to take about 20 minutes a day where I sit down at the end of the day and I say to myself, so what did I achieve? What have I got to do tomorrow? I hate being caught by surprise, so I do like to know what I'm doing, where I'm going. And then I'm very fortunate. My wife is also a Toastmaster, Leslie, as you know, and she's a great sounding board. So it's great and she reminds me sometimes, oh, look, don't forget you've got to do this and do that. But she's also a great evaluator, and she'll come and she'll see me give a speech or whatever, and I really value the feedback she gives me because it's honest evaluation. She's prepared to tell me if you didn't do your jacket up, you didn't stand straight, you did the little things that you need to know that maybe other people aren't prepared to tell you. So I think you need to have a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor they can trust. Whether you're in business, you need someone whose advice you trust. So I think the big thing is to have a mentor or a team of mentors who can help you, who you trust, and who can keep you on track.
And I think the permission to be brutally honest and understanding it comes from a nurture, not a destroyer perspective, I think is really valuable. And 10 points for Leslie then.
And as you know, in Toastmasters, evaluation is the keystone of our organisation. And
it's no matter what role you play in the course of a club meeting, it will be evaluated. And I think that's such a fantastic lesson for business and for organisations, is that everything we do needs to have some form of evaluation, even if it's personal reflection at the very, very minimum. I think is how else do we improve? How else do we get better?
Exactly, which is why I would urge everybody to come to Toastmasters. If you don't learn anything else, you will learn how to receive and give constructive evaluation.
Exactly. And I think knowing or expecting there will be feedback is a key piece to that. And I don't think that happens in business very often. We need to expect it. We need to not be so naive and be open to it. And I know that quite often managers and leaders in certain businesses don't deliver it very well. But even though they're well intended, and I think that's where some organisations, particularly Toastmasters, they provide a structure, they provide a way in which to craft some feedback.
Exactly. It has to be supportive, not destructive.
Yeah. Even if something's gone wrong, it's about a proactive approach to fixing and learning. So yeah,
exactly.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, Mike, I have loved chatting with you and I really appreciate it. And I want to finish on something that you have said. The skills I developed in Toastmasters, from helping others work as a team and developing a vision in order to reach a common goal, have made me better equipped to tackle leadership opportunities both in my private life and professional life. Mike Storkey. Thank you so much, Mike. I have loved speaking with you. I think we're so much on the same page, we could probably talk for another 3 days straight. We are Toastmasters, after all. Any final words from you, Mike?
Yeah, I think the saying I have now, and I tell Toastmasters, is we're not here to make better Toastmasters. We're here to make better people who learn the skills in a Toastmasters club to take them outside and use them in their family, their business, or their community life. And I think that's really, that encapsulates what it's all about. We have to be better people who share and support others.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And if you want more management success, you can subscribe to sallyfoley-lewis.com and grab your free management success workbook as well as a 20-minute productivity booster. See you next time on an episode of People and Management.